Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Mel and I am a knitter and crafter living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. If you are new here, then welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, then welcome back. I have a few finished objects for this episode. Not just knitting, I do have some crochet as well. And I am wearing my first finished object now. This is what I'm wearing. This is a finished shawl that I finally finished the knitted on border of, and it took some getting there. Let me just take this off a moment. This is the Merlot shawl. I'm just trying to make sure I have it the right way, which I didn't. I had it on back to front. It doesn't surprise me at all. This is the Merlot shawl, and this is a design by Elise Dupont, and it is a fairly simple knitted shawl, for most of it with a nice fancy lace border on the end. I'm really happy this is finished, and I'm really happy with the finished shawl as well. It's quite I wouldn't go so far to say jazzy, but it's quite variegated for what I would normally knit a shawl in. Usually my shawls are sort of semi-solid colours or a combination of semi-solid colours, so this is quite bright for me, but I really like it. And I've used up some yarn that I had in stash for quite a few years that was specifically put aside, or specifically bought rather, to make a shawl with. So like I said, the pattern is the Merlot shawl, and this is what it looks like in the pattern. And this is a fingering weight shawl, and I knit this on 4mm needles, I believe. I haven't wrote it down, which means probably, because I usually knit my fingering weight shawls on a 4mm needle. And I used 2 yarns of the same base from the same dyer in obviously 2 different colours for this. I'm a little croaky today, apologies. So the main colour is called, I don't remember, hold on, where is the ball band? Is Fully Completely, and the bronze colour is Midnight Owl. The yarn dyer is unfortunately no longer dyeing yarn, but it is Old Maiden Ant yarns, and it is on a 50% merino, 50% silk base, so it is very soft and just really nice and cozy. It will pill crazily, I can tell, because it's got quite a bit of a halo on it already, and I haven't worn it yet except for the podcast, so I imagine it's going to pill, but since it's a shawl it doesn't really matter. The only thing that I'm not fussed on, which is the same with any crescent shawl, is the cast on, which tends to have this kind of lump here, but I have blocked out most of it as best I can. The border took quite a while to knit, because you knit the whole shawl just getting wider and wider and wider on this crescent shape, and then you have all your stitches on your long cable and you cast on extra stitches for the border, and then you knit back and forth across these dozen or so stitches here all the way along the shawl, and it did take quite a while. Eventually I finished off the last third just by listening to a couple of audiobooks on an evening, instead of like watching TV or crafting some other sort of crafting that I would normally do whilst listening to audiobooks. I just knit instead, and I got there and worked it through. The lace is not going to show up very well, I don't think, because once you get light through it, oh, you can see it like that. That's coming up really nice. It is a nice pretty, it's almost like a cabled effect or a wave effect lace work, and I really like it. I'm very happy with it, and I love these kind of these eyelet bands. They kind of look like gold chain kind of effect through the shawl, which I also really like. So this is my first finished object for this episode. I don't think there's anything else to say about it. I think I covered everything. I am trying to get through this episode relatively quickly because I don't have much time today. So that is my first finished object. And I would hesitate to say it's my favourite one of this episode, because I also like the next one a lot too. This is a crochet blanket that I did show on the previous episode and I have now completed. This is a lap blanket for my husband. It is using the Rainbow Ripple Baby Blanket pattern, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. And the designer is Celeste Young. It is quite popular. And that's how it looks in the pattern. I have used a different yarn. I've I've crocheted this twice before with a DK weight yarn. This is a Aran weight yarn. I would say it's more worsted weight, to be perfectly honest. It is heavier. I went up a hook size rather for this, and it worked out fine. It's come out pretty much the same size as my other ones, and I used the same amount of yarn by weight as I did for the DK weight ones. My DK weight ones, I did one in Yarn Smith's Elvis and one in King Cole Mandala, both of which were DK weight and acrylic yarns, and pretty much the same yarn, just different brands. This time I used the yarn the Yarn Smith's Nirvana Aran, and this is, it actually has the shade code here, which is 2P050, but I believe it's called Woodland Walk. And in my other blankets I think I used a 5mm needle, and for this I used a 6mm needle. If I'm wrong, I will post all the links to the project pages down below. I'm pretty sure I used a 6mm for this. Like, I tested it with a 6 and I tested it with a 7, and I preferred the 6. So I'm very happy with it, and I've really liked how the colours have worked up in this yarn. It has shorter colour repeats than the previous ones that I had. The other ones were more of a fade, so they had quite big blocks of colour towards the centre, and then towards the outer edges, the last sort of half dozen rows, you would get a striped effect like this. Because these have shorter colour repeats, it's completely a stripe effect all throughout, and I much prefer it. It looks very, very nice. I am very happy with it. Other than that, what is there to say about this? I don't think there is. I'm looking forward to doing my next one. We are coming up to the warmer weather now. It doesn't get super warm in Orkney, but it does get very humid. So blanket making is pretty much off the cards for the next couple of months. That and the reverse sort of like puberty, you know, hot flushes are kicking my butt right now, and working on a blanket is not so fun. So come back round to September time, and maybe then I will pick up other yarns that I have bought to make more blankets. Although I do have, one of the yarns is a Christmas yarn, so that will probably be in November, December time. And the other one is more of a pale pink, so maybe I will hold fire on that and work that up in the new year, rather than in the autumn, when I will probably be wanting to do autumn and Halloween knits anyway. So that is my second finished object for this episode, and I think it's, yes, it's the only crochet object for this episode as well. So I only have one more finished object, and I forgot my sock blockers. So we're just going to pretend this one is on a sock blocker next. It is only a pair of vanilla DK weight socks, so it's nothing fancy, nothing fancy. I am working my way through a bunch of DK weight sock yarns that I say working through. I keep buying new ones, so does that really count as working through? I have a sock making addiction, and I have a lot of fingering weight socks, and I have a few DK, or I had a couple of pairs of DK weight, and I really like wearing them when on an evening when you've been in a shower sort of thing. So I wanted more, So I bought a bunch of the Drops Fiesta DK weight sock yarn, which is a standard ratio sock yarn, so 75% wool, 25% nylon or polyamide, and but it as a DK weight, and I'm working through them. This one is in the colourway Mountain Mist, which is colour number 36. I did start knitting a pair of lacework DK weights, DK weight lace. I started knitting a lace pattern, sock pattern in this yarn, and the pattern just wasn't showing up. In fact, I've started in a different yarn in fingering weight and it didn't show up in that either, so I'm going to have to knit that in a completely plain colour at some point down the line. So after not being able to knit the lace pattern, I just switched to doing a vanilla sock, and I just used my standard vanilla sock recipe, I suppose, just adapted for DK weight rather than fingering weight. So this is a Turkish cast on toe up sock. I've knit the toe increasing up to 48 stitches around, then I'd knit 45 rows past the toe to the gusset, and then I made 8 increases on each side for the gusset, alternating with increase row, plain knit row, and then I did a plain heel turn and heel flap, and 30 rows for the ankle and 15 for the rib in 1x1 rib with a stretchy bind off. That was a lot to think about today. When I'm talking fingering weight, I can just kind of like rattle it off because I've done so many fingering weight socks, but the DK weight one I had to think a bit more about it. So that is my third finished object for this episode, and that is all of the finished objects. So that brings us to works in progress. I do have fluff in my mouth. I do have another pair of socks in the same yarn base, so Drops Fiesta, this time in the colourway 41, and I think it's, I don't even remember what this colourway is called. It's called Enchanted or something. I will just quickly check. It's something along those lines. It's something along those lines. Where are we? Where are we? It is Enchanted Dream. I was quite close. And it is a very delicate colour, this one. It is almost like a an undyed yarn, just with very light pastel-y colours splashed through it. It's quite pretty, and I'm using this to knit an actual lace pair of socks. I am using the pattern Fairy Maiden by This Handmade Life, which I think is one of her free ones, and it has these pretty cables running up it, but these are top down, cuff down rather, socks, so I am knitting the chart in reverse. I could have just knit the chart toe up and knit the chart as it is, but the pattern would have been upside down, and sometimes I do that, but this particular one I thought it did look better in the orientation it's supposed to be in the pattern, so I've just turned the pattern over and I'm knitting the cable work upside down basically. I haven't got very far with the first sock. I have done the first couple of chart repeats, or I'm at least 1.5 chart repeats through, and it's coming up quite well in this yarn. Because the colours are so delicate, it's actually showing the lace work quite well in this. It does look even better in real life, and once I get a few more repeats on this, it will look even better. I've only got so far because I'm planning this to be one of my takeaway on holiday with me when I'm not on the island projects. I just wanted to get it set up so I didn't have to think about it and put in stitch markers and all that. So although I have started this, I won't be working on it for at least a couple of weeks, because it's going to be at least a couple of weeks before I get to go off the island. So I've set up a few projects. I have a couple of other vanilla socks that I've kind of just done the toe and started the main yarn on, but I've done so little on them, it wasn't worth bringing them to show on the podcast, but they can be shown next time. So these I am knitting on 9-inch circulars, and I'm using a 2.75mm 9-inch circular needle for this, and I cast on with a 2.75 magic loop for these as well. I will be knitting them pretty much the same as the vanilla socks, just with the lace pattern on the top of the foot instead. I haven't decided if I'll be knitting it completely all around the ankle or not. I will see how I feel when I get to that point. I don't think there's much else to say about those because I haven't got very far yet, and they are basically a vanilla sock but with the pattern involved as well. So what have we got left? We have 2 more objects to show this episode. I'm flying this one. This is great. This won't take too long to upload. Maybe it will only take like 6 hours instead of 10. That would be good. I'm hoping to get faster internet soon, hopefully, and then I can stop complaining about it on almost every episode. So I do have one other pair of socks and a garment that I'm working on. The socks are mostly done. I am working on the heel of the second sock, but the first sock, which is a very long sock, is complete. These are some walking boot socks that I'm making for myself, and these are DK weight as well actually, and I'm really happy with them. They are lovely and woolly. Obviously I've not woven in the ends yet, and I'm very happy with how it's come out. This yarn is some that I picked up when I was visiting Mum a few months ago, and it is Rico Sock and Volley Premium 6 ply, and these come in 150g balls, so that's plenty for a nice long pair of DK weight socks. This is in the colourway 007, which I don't think these have a name, and recommended needle size is a 3 to 4mm. I am knitting these on a 2.75 because socks, and I'm a loose knitter, but also because they are socks. I have basically done the same as my other DK weight socks, with a few, just tweaking it slightly. This yarn is not as thick as the Drops Fiesta. The Drops Fiesta, although it is a DK weight, it's definitely on the heavier side. I would say it's bordering on worsted, like quite a few of the Drops yarns are slightly on the heavier side. This is more of a true DK weight. So I have cast on the same amount of stitches around, so 48 stitches, but I think I knit an extra like 5 or 10 rows before the gusset, and I did 12 gusset increases instead of 8 for these. I also did a eye of partridge heel turn, and I did a slip stitch ridge heel flap as well, because these are more for wearing obviously in boots as opposed to my after shower socks, which are in slippers. Also, I made an extra long leg with this. So what I did was, on every 10th row, I increased 4 stitches around, the same way I would for increasing for the toe, but I think I did opposite increases. So I, on each side, like if the center, imagine the center seam, so I would knit 1 stitch and then I would make one, I've got to do this in reverse, haven't I? So I would knit 1 stitch and then I would make 1 stitch left, and then I would knit round to the other side seam. I would make 1 increase right and then knit 1 stitch, and then I would slip my marker and then knit 1 stitch, increase left, back to the beginning, make 1 right, knit 1, and then my beginning marker. And I did that every 10 rows. I increased, well, I knit 80 rows, so I did 8 sets of 4 increases, and then I knit 1 more row before I switched to knitting 2x2 rib, which I just stayed with 2.75mm needles for the rib, and I did a nice stretchy bind off as well. And these fit great. They fit really good either if you want them completely up your leg, if you wanted to wear them with like long boots or wellies, and they push down nicely to look nice with my walking boots. So I'm very happy with them, and I'm looking forward to having these done. I didn't think I would get so far on the second one so quickly. I thought I'd be taking this one away with me, but I might in fact have this finished. No, actually thinking about it, it's got a long leg on it. But they will be ready for walking when I'm away on holiday, at least for part of my holiday, which is good. So whether or not you'll see these again before they're worn is debatable. You might not, but you have seen a finished one, so that's the main thing. Okay, my final finished object for this episode is a garment, and this one is slowly coming along. It is the Storm Sweater by Petite Knit, and it has been on hold for a couple of weeks. Maybe not that long, but it's been on hold for at least a week. But now that I've kind of set up all of my holiday knitting, I will be working on this again. I have finished what is, well, it's not really a yoke. Well, I suppose it is, but it's not like finishing the yoke. But I have knit past the separation, or adding the sleeves. I've knit past the armholes basically. So I've knit the front and I've knit the back. It is all joined in the round now, and I don't have to do any knitting across the wrong side, which is great. Unfortunately, it's all in pattern, so there are still purl stitches. It's not like when you're knitting a colourwork sweater and suddenly you can just knit stockinette for miles. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So I have knit a couple of inches past the armhole, and I definitely am going to need some more yarn for this. I wouldn't say it's eating yarn, but it is using quite a bit of yarn. But that's okay, it's going to be a lovely cozy sweater, and I really like this shade of grey. I don't know if it's looking a little warm on my viewfinder, but it is quite a neutral grey, this one, and it's just a nice shade. I'm really happy with it, and I'm really happy with how the stitch definition is coming up in this yarn. So the pattern, like I said, is the Storm Sweater by Petite Knit rather, and it's a very popular pattern. In fact, this is the first Petite Knit pattern I've actually knit so far. I'm very pleased with the instructions, although they were a little bit confusing at times. I think that was more to do with the actual way the garment is constructed as opposed to the writing of the pattern. The needles that I'm using, what needle size am I using? I'm using 4mm needles, which is as the pattern states, and I think I must be pretty much on gauge because I haven't written otherwise on the pattern. The yarn I'm using it's another drops yarn actually. I see a lot of drops at the moment. A lot of drops yarn. This is Drops Lima in the colour 9010. And it is this grey, and it unfortunately is a discontinued shade, but you can pick it up here and there, which obviously I'm hoping to do. And I don't think there's a lot to say at this point with it. It's coming along nicely, and I mean, I've tried it on and it seems to fit nice, but it is difficult to tell how it's going to look at this stage. It will be a nice cozy sweater for the winter, I think. I haven't decided yet how long I'm going to make it. I think I'm going to knit a little bit further on the body. Maybe I'll probably use up the ball of yarn I'm currently using, and then work on the sleeves, and that will give me a better indication of how much more yarn I'm going to need to order to finish the sweater. Also, it'll kind of give me a better idea of the length that I want for the sweater to finish at as well. Often with a garment, I will knit the body to sort of like the very minimum length that I would knit to, then knit the sleeves, and then whatever yarn I've got left, I can then make a judgment call on whether I have enough yarn to make it any longer, or if I need to order more, or if I need to make my jumper shorter than I'd originally intended, or even I can get to a point on the sleeves and say maybe I'm going to need 3/4 sleeves. So it just means that you're not going to run out of yarn when you just start the first sleeve or something like that. So I think that's all the items for this episode. It has gone relatively quickly, which is great. Keeping on top of these videos really does make a difference. Life stuff. Not a lot from last time. My van is now ready for my trip away. I'm just waiting for my husband's car to pass its MOT so that I can leave the island. Otherwise he won't have a vehicle to be able to get to and from work because he'll have to use my vehicle. So I'm kind of stuck in limbo currently. The garden took a little bit of a back seat over the last month whilst we were getting the van ready. The thing is, being on where we are in the north of Scotland, you have a limited amount of good weather. So on the days when the weather is good or dry enough to do anything outside, you have to get everything done, and there's always loads to do. So you have to prioritise, and my priority was getting the van ready to be able to go on hiking trips. So now that that's done, I can focus again on the garden, because it is suddenly gone and grown everywhere. Everything has grown, and I'm now going to have to play catch up for the next couple of weeks. Although I guess not being able to go away just yet means I do have a couple of extra weeks where I can get the garden worked on, which is probably a good thing. Other than that, I don't think there's much else to share. There's not a lot happening. It's all pretty much the same around here that it always is, and it's kind of how we like it. I'd rather have planned things happening rather than things just happening around me, if that makes sense. Planned excursions, planned projects, good. Things sprung on you, not so good. Not keen on that. I like things to just chug along, unless I choose otherwise. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to just start rambling. I am desperate for a cup of tea. It is mid-afternoon now, and I haven't had a cup of tea in hours. So I'm going to leave this video for this episode, and I hopefully will see you on the next one very soon. Thank you for watching, and I shall speak to you again soon. Bye bye.